Hey everyone, Chloe here, and welcome back to my channel. And if you are new here, ladies and lurkers, welcome. So in today's video, I wanted to have an awareness conversation about some of the often undiscussed and very hidden reasons as to why mothers are often harsher on their daughters, while at the same time spoiling and coddling and being protective of their sons. Now, I first need to say that not all women will practice this girl-on-girl crime with their daughters, and that some mothers are very loving and protective mama bears who will often raise their daughters to be confident and secure, feminine women who are rooted in high self-esteem and high self-worth. And I also need to say that the market of mothers who are softer on their sons, and this message is particularly for Black women who interracially date and marry, because this fact needs to be demystified, that the market for mothers who baby their sons is not cornered to Black mothers only, as all races and nationalities of women can attest to the common practice and phenomenon of how lenient and territorial and dysfunctional that mothers can be with their sons. Now, of course, this topic was brought up most recently by the adorable Willow Smith of the popular Facebook series, The Red Table Talk, where she discussed that her mother, Jada Entangled Pinkett Smith, was much more demanding of her as a girl child growing up than Jada was of her baby boy Jaden, who was often handled by Jada with kid gloves. But to Willow's advantage, and to keep things in perspective, Willow is clearly a celebrity daddy's girl, as she is not the average Black girl or Black woman, in that she has had the tremendous blessing and balance of having both of her loving and accepting parents, as she has had the tremendous benefit of having a loving provider and protective father that has doted on her entire life in Mr. Will Smith. But I wanted to discuss the many hidden reasons as to why this topic seems to always flare up with Black women. And as a warning, a lot of what you are about to hear when it comes to this very layered dynamic will be triggering for many mothers and sisters and mother-in-laws and sister-in-laws to hear, as many of these women are generally pretty guilty of being out of pocket and viciously territorial and out of line when it comes to the men in their families, especially when those men are in romantic relationships where they are being providers for their women. But I must say that this phenomenon of women being harder and harsher on other women and being harsher on their daughters as compared to their sons is as old as time. And there is a biological reason and a wiring reason and the male and feminine principle reason as to why all races and nationalities of women will often practice this bias and imbalance and this unfairness towards women and their daughters. So diving in, here are the main top 13 reasons, in my feminine opinion, why mothers are easier on sons and are harsher on their daughters. Starting off, number one, mothers, and this may be a tough truth for some women to swallow, but mothers and aunties and grandmothers are women first, and they always will be. And when you realize that your mother is a woman first before she is your mother, you will better understand why women are often harsher on one another, and the answer is unconscious competition or unconscious bias. As women, and I have discussed this many times on my channel, are competitive and comparative by nature when it comes to the realm of men. And yes, mothers will often choose the attention of their sons over their daughters because of the masculine principle. Number two, and this is no secret, sons are often emotional surrogate husbands for their mothers. And many times, sons and husbands are not even aware of how they have been groomed in this mama's boy manner until they are in serious romantic relationships. When mothers have sons as opposed to having daughters, those sons are often a direct, uninterrupted pipeline to masculine energy, and most mothers will never want to part ways with that masculine bond or attachment, as that bond will forever feed a mother's insatiable need to fulfill that masculine balance or lack thereof. Number three, Black men and other nationalities of men who will often disapprove of stay-at-home wives and mothers will often do so because their mothers taught them to have this very feminine and self-focused attitude, as many nationalities of men are indoctrinated to believe that stay-at-home wives and mothers are lazy women because those mothers secretly hope that their sons will never get into meaningful relationships And they secretly often pray that their sons will never ever get married, because if their sons did get married, they will no longer be available to be their surrogate husbands. And surrogate husbands are a huge issue in the Black community, which is why I did a feminine school video on why sons are not husbands. Number 4, daughters are little girls who will eventually grow into adult women who will at some point challenge the hierarchy of their mothers. And this is an irrational woman's thing and a hormonal thing based on the back and forth power struggles that often come with a woman's developing womanhood. And for many mothers, this expected ego challenge is why they are often harder on their daughters, especially when a mother's number one goal is to be the boss and to remain the boss. Number 5, sons are often coddled by their mothers because most mothers will always want to be the number one woman in their son's life, even when a man is married with children. Again, ladies, it is a competition thing with women, particularly when they get older or they are unhappily married or they are divorced or if they were never married. The coddling of their sons is a setup for a lifetime bond and attachment where mommy dearest will always be the number one woman in her son's life. Moving on to number 6, the nasty and territorial mother-in-law is a cliche for a reason. Mother-in-laws are notorious for their secretive and passive-aggressive stance in competing with their daughter-in-laws by undermining them. Again, this is a territorial thing and a competition thing because most mother-in-laws are not interested in sharing power or having their power usurped, threatened, or diminished. Number 7, mothers and older women in general can be very fearful of erasure and becoming invisible to their sons, and daughter-in-laws are the very real threat that will often make those irrational fears come true. Number 8, and this may be triggering for some of you to hear, but in the Black community, mothers are often harder on their daughters when there is a glaring absence or a dearth of men in the family. And in these common situations, daughters are often turned into protectors and providers and are indoctrinated to be in their masculine, to be the breadwinners for their families, and they are conditioned to become the surrogate men who are responsible for bringing home the bacon. But for a woman to accept this role, a mother will often have to put her foot on her daughter's neck for her daughter to accept this very common form of masculine grooming. Number 9, women who are indoctrinated in their masculine are often women who are taught to believe that it is their responsibility to become a retirement plan for their single mothers and or their parents. Again, these women have been groomed to be the heroes and the rescuers of the family dynamic with codependent conditioning. And this brainwashing is very common as many Black women are made to feel guilty and responsible for the needs of everyone over themselves. Number 10, parentification. Parentification, for those of you who don't know, is role reversal between a mother and a child where the parent becomes the child and the child becomes the parent. And many Black mothers are very guilty of making their daughters the parent of their younger siblings. It is also a huge reason as to why many career Black women do not have children of their own, or they already resent the children that they already have because they were forced to be fathers to their siblings growing up. Number 11, good old-fashioned jealousy. Unfortunately, many mothers are pathologically envious of their daughters. They are jealous of their youth, of their opportunities, of their beauty, and of her ability to possibly one day have a family and a husband of her own. So many mothers will jeopardize and sabotage their daughters by engineering them to be masculine. Number 12, trauma bonding. There are many mothers who are harsher on their daughters as a form of trauma bonding to keep their daughters close. There are many mothers who are more than willing to keep their daughters manly, stagnant, and stuck by keeping them on a short leash and by making their daughters feel responsible for their well-being, as daughters can also be turned into lifelong surrogate husbands. And finally, number 13, sometimes mothers simply lack feminine energy. When mothers are the sole providers for their families and are working to put food on the table and to keep the lights on, they are often 10,000% in their masculine without let up, which will often explain why they are so harsh on their daughters. And when mothers lack femininity, they are often very tough on their daughters because they literally do not understand any other way of being. And this type of tough love, masculine parenting will often come from the established family pattern of the generational curse, where femininity and the feminine divine were either stripped, never taught or modeled to the mother or the grandmother or the great-grandmother. And as we all know, a parent cannot give you what they do not have. And this is how generational curses are perpetuated and repeated due to a lack of awareness. And this is why you need to subscribe to this channel so that the generational curse can finally end with you. Now, as for sons who are babied and coddled, contrary to popular belief, their life is no walk in the park either, as stunted men who are groomed to be immature and entitled will almost always experience the painfully devastating consequences that come from being stifled and stunted and babied in their manhood, because these men are usually not prepared for the battle-tested world of manhood and of all the benefits that come with it, like having a family and building a legacy and being respected and being admired and being a hero to their children. So do not think for 1 second, ladies, that the men who have been weakened by their mothers do not pay a very steep price. Now, as for solutions, there is always therapy or family therapy or getting away from your toxic family dynamic. But the most important solution for women when it comes to the very complicated mother-daughter dynamic of engineered toughness is to step into your womanhood and your femininity so that you are no longer controlled by your conditioned masculinity. As stepping into your womanhood is one of the most empowering shifts and gifts that a woman can use at her disposal to help her feel fulfilled and balanced and, more importantly, joyful and happy and alive. So that is all that I have to say on this for now. Mothers are typically harsher on their daughters when they themselves are lacking in their feminine divine. And women are typically harsher on other women because of good old-fashioned competition and the common petty emotion of envy. So to get this conversation started, do you believe that mothers are easier on their sons? And are mothers harsher on their daughters on purpose, or do mothers do this unconsciously? And as always, I look forward to reading your amazing comments below, and stay tuned for more womanhood conversations to come. And I will catch up with you ladies and lurkers in the next one.